it's actually the menopausal transition, which is quite an extended period of a woman's life. You're looking at something that from end to end could be a quarter or a third of a woman's lifespan.
Welcome to Midlife Unfiltered, a podcast about unapologetically embracing the season of me as we live the lives we want in midlife and beyond. I'm Anita McLachlan.
I'm Erica Webb. We're here to make some noise, say hell no to outdated stereotypes, and hell yes to living life on our terms.
Well, hello and welcome to Midlife Unfiltered, the season of me. This season, we have called this the disruption for many reasons, but because in midlife, it is a massive disruption, but it's also an awakening and a tremendous opportunity. And joining me today is Dr. Kelly Teagle. Welcome, Kelly.
Hi, Anita. Thanks very much for having me. I'm very excited.
I'm so excited too because I feel like I'm in the room with a fellow disruptor, and I love that.
Totally. Let's shake things up here.
Let's shake it up. So just very briefly, if I let the girls who are listening into the podcast know a little bit about you, and then if you want to add to that, feel free. But what I know of you from doing a little bit of desktop research is that you did your medical studies here in Brisbane at UQ, and you were also in the Air Force, which we've had a bit of a chat about as well. And then you became a GP specialising in women's reproductive and sexual health. Mm-hmm. All power to you. You know, we need more people like you in this world. And then at 42, your world very much disrupted when you went through your menopause phase. And perhaps you'd like to touch on that as well for the girls, because I think that's really relevant. And then you founded WellFemme Telehealth. And that too is groundbreaking and so needed, because it means that women, wherever they are, can get the right advice and access knowledge and information and help. So congratulations on that too, on WellFemme. But that's not enough, is it, Kelly? You still want to do more in this space. So Kelly has also launched a program called Next Phase Wellness for Women, and we're going to touch on that today as well. And something else that this piece of paper doesn't tell us is that you've also been at a Senate inquiry recently. So you're also working to make change in our government, if you like, to help women's causes as well, particularly as it relates to menopause, as I understand it. So welcome. Mm-hmm. You're a hard act to follow, and thank God you're doing what you're doing and that you're here. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. It's what kind of gets me up in the morning.
Yeah, wow, it's big. And, you know, I know that you will make a huge difference in this world. What a wonderful legacy. So thank you, Kelly, for everything you do.
Thank you.
Let's dive in a little bit to understand this, what I think is a significant disruption for many women in midlife, which is menopause. And I would love your insights on what you've come to learn about women going through menopause, this stage of life, which is not a disease. We want to talk about that too. It is a natural phase of life. So, yeah, shall we start with some menopause basics, Menopause 101, so that
let's do
women
Menopause
can catch
101. I call it my menopause boot camp. Let's do that.
Let's do that. Let's go.
Yeah. So menopause is really interesting because menopause itself is just like a moment in time, literally. It's like when your ovaries pop out their last egg. So what we're talking about when we talk about menopause, with all the symptoms and the things that people are dreading and worrying about and questioning, it's actually the menopausal transition, which is quite an extended period of a woman's life. You know, it might start in her 30s, late 30s, going on to even the 60s. So you're looking at something that from end to end could be a quarter or a third of a woman's lifespan, depending on how long they live. So in terms of the natural history of what we're talking about, the perimenopause has come to be phrased for the build up to menopause, even though peri means around menopause. we talk about perimenopause as the lead up. And what's happening during that time is that even though you might be having plumb normal regular periods, we're seeing subtle shifts in what's happening with your reproductive hormones at that time. So your ovaries may not be as efficient as they used to be at popping out progesterone at that. So once you've ovulated each month, normally you get a surge in progesterone, but that might not be happening to the same extent. So you're starting to see these shifts between estrogen and progesterone, the two main hormones involved. And that can lead to quite subtle symptoms, like women might start to complain about getting worsening PMS or migraines leading up to their periods or things like that. So that is one of the reasons why I think we tend to get more of those mood and psychological symptoms in the perimenopause, because that's the peak time of hormonal upheaval. People don't recognize that or realize that. They think that menopause itself is when you're going to get the bad symptoms, but it can be much, much worse for a lot of people, particularly with the psychological and mental health symptoms in that perimenopause. The closer they're getting to menopause, the more random and erratic the hormones can be, and the worse their psychological symptoms can be. And a lot of GPs are under this misconception too, that if they've got a patient in front of them who's got plumb normal regular periods, that, hey, it's nothing to do with perimenopause, here, have some antidepressants. The reality is it may well be associated with perimenopause. It's just that, the definitions we have are all related to menstruation and menstrual cycles. So we've got this beautiful chart, which is very complicated, that lists the stages of menopause according to women's periods. But what happens if they've had a hysterectomy, or they've got a Mirena, or they've had an endometrial ablation? You don't know what their periods are doing. So, it's not such a great definition at all, really. So just to put that one to bed, you can actually have perimenopause related issues even if you've got plumb regular periods. And then what we find is the closer you get to actual menopause, which is when you run out of eggs, the more erratic, random, maybe bigger gaps, things can happen with your cycle or ovulations, regardless of whether you're seeing any periods or not. And then you pop out your final egg, don't you? And it's menopause. Hurrah. But we don't know it's menopause yet, because we don't know it's menopause until you've been 12 months without any periods, or 12 months without any further ovulations. The other thing to note here is that some women can go through exceptionally early or exceptionally late menopause. So, probably most women, 90% of them will go through between 45 and 55. But then you've got the outliers, 5% under the age of 45, 5% over the age of 55, and even 1% below the age of 40. So, there's a big variation there. But once you've had menopause, forever after, you are considered postmenopausal. Some women, though, of course, might go through menopause for other reasons other than natural menopause, because maybe they've had a cancer and they've had to have chemotherapy or have their ovaries removed, or, some sort of other medical treatment that's caused them to go through a medical or surgical menopause early. And the really important thing to note about that is that if you're particularly early, much before the age of 45, the problem here is that you're going to be having low estrogen for a much longer period of time than women who go through at the natural age of around 51. And that has particularly very detrimental effects. You could get very sudden, very severe, and much more prolonged symptoms like hot flushes, and you're going to be at much higher risk of developing premature osteoporosis and heart disease if you've had a really early menopause. So if you're listening to this and you're somebody who's gone through a particularly early menopause, please, please, please make sure you go and get some really good specialised advice to make sure that if you need estrogen replacement up to the normal age of menopause, you get it, so that you don't end up being osteoporotic by the time you're 55. So that's a very long-winded 101 on what menopause is.
Well, long-winded, but it's a big topic, and with so many
It's huge.
variations, because
Yep.
we're all individual, right? So
Mhm.
we can talk in generalities, but we will each experience menopause very differently, won't we?
Absolutely. You can't, and this is what frustrates me is I often see patients coming in who are, coming onto my screen, because I do telehealth, who say, oh, the people in the Facebook group told me I need this. and every woman's experience is so different. Their medical history is very different. The way that they maybe react or respond to different treatments is going to be very, very different. So please don't make that assumption that just because the other women in the Facebook group are saying this stuff is great, that it's necessarily going to be the one for you.
Yeah. Listen to them and be part of a supportive community, absolutely. But
For sure. Get
but get
individualized medical advice. There's nothing that can replace that.
yeah. And from
Mhm.
someone who knows, and that's why you're here today, because this is your specialty. And
Mm.
I've discovered personally there's gaps, which is why this podcast exists. We
Mhm.
want women to be their own advocates, to be
Mm.
their own health advocates, because there are so many gaps in the system. And GPs are great, and this is not a
Mm.
slight on GPs. They deal with a lot and they
I
have to
am
know
one.
so much. And you are one, yeah. But unless you specialize in this, I guess
Mm.
it's really hard to keep up with exactly, what the guidelines are, what to do, what various treatments, all of those
Mm.
things.
Mhm.
So we have to be aware that there are gaps, and then it's up to us to fill those gaps. Is that what you see in the women that you serve through WellFemme?
Absolutely, because there's a lot of confusion out there amongst health professionals as well as to what they should be doing. And so they often need support and guidance as well. Now, that's not to say that you should disregard the advice of your GP, but I think, we are blessed with having a wealth of information at our fingertips with the internet. The risk is the whole doctor Googling thing and making your own decisions about what you want and need even before you go and speak to the professional. I've actually written a blog post, which we can link to in the show notes, called, the 5 top tips for having the menopause chat with your GP, because I think it's really, really
Fantastic.
important to go in with an open mind. By all means, go in informed and empowered, but try not to have preconceived ideas about what you think you want or need, particularly if you're going specifically to a menopause specialist, because there might be a lot of things you don't know or understand about, how that might apply to you, particularly as an individual. So definitely keep an open mind with those discussions.
Yeah, so important. We value curiosity here as well. That's
Mm,
one of our core values. So, absolutely open mind and open heart.
mm.
With
But don't
compassion
be
and
gaslit
kindness.
and don't be put off, don't be fobbed off. Mm,
Yeah, keep
mhm,
persisting. And
yeah.
so we will definitely link to that blog post.
Mhm,
Absolutely, we will. Um, we will. I wanted to talk about questions that
mm,
women should ask, so that they can get the information that they need, but also to then digest that and go, okay, this makes sense to me. This is what I feel comfortable with. So,
mhm,
can we touch on that a little bit now? Actually, seeing it's come up,
mm,
is what are those questions that you think women should be asking of their GPs?
mm,
Because assuming that women go to GPs first, most of us go to our
mhm,
trusted GP as a first port of call. But then once they have that discussion, what then? So I guess
mm,
it's a bit
mm.
of a two-parter there to consider.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Look, a lot of women uh, don't even realize what stage of perimenopause or menopause they're at. And to be honest, a lot of the time I don't either, because it can get really, really tricky if they've got a marina in or they've had an ablation and they're not really aware if they're ovulating or not. So it can be quite tricky to work out, and we don't always need to know that. So number one, I would say, don't go in thinking you're going to need blood tests to diagnose menopause. It doesn't help. The blood tests can be very misleading because of that hormonal chaos I was mentioning in perimenopause.
Mhm.
So they might look really abnormal one day and really fine, the next day. So I would say, don't go in there expecting or demanding blood tests that in most cases they're not going to be helpful.
Mhm.
Um, I would go, but what is going to be helpful is that distinction between whether you might need continuous, if you're going down the pathway of hormonal treatment, whether you might need continuous treatment or cyclical treatment, because that's usually dependent on whether or not you're still having periods. But look, let's take a step back there, and when it comes to the subject of hormonal treatments or not in the first
Mm.
place, you know,
Mm.
what you want to be talking to your doctor, health professional about is the range of symptoms. What are my priority symptoms? What is it that's really disrupting my ability to function or really making my life miserable at the moment. So what are my priorities for treatment? Because certainly if you've got really terrible hot flushes or sweats, absolutely hormonal treatment is hands down the most effective treatment for that, and it's actually really low risk and has lots of long-term protective health benefits. So definitely you should be talking to somebody about that if flushes and sweats are your main thing, or if you've got osteoporosis. So those are a nice clear-cut one. It gets a bit trickier if you've got, mainly sort of non-specific symptoms like mood or fatigue or things like that. If you've got symptoms of vaginal dryness or pain, that absolutely needs to be talked about with your health professional. A lot of women avoid that discussion because they're not comfortable bringing it up with that health professional or their regular GP. And if that's the case, go and see a pelvic floor physiotherapist, a women's health physio, or somebody that you do feel comfortable talking about it with, because it's just going to get worse. And, there's no point trying to address the fact that your libido is low if it's going to hurt like hell when you try and have sex and you're not going to enjoy it. So there's all of these different things. What is my key symptomology here? What is my main issue? What's going to be the best treatment to address that? And then if you are going down the path of hormonal treatments, then you need to do some myth busting. If you're feeling worried about it because you've heard about an increased risk of breast cancer or blood clots or strokes, or you're confused about the difference between bioidentical and regular type hormones, then yes, you need to have those conversations, because these days we have fantastic body identical hormonal products, which are the safest available based on evidence. There's no need to be going to quacks and getting compounded stuff, to smush on your skin, and when I say smush on your skin, I'm talking about like yam cream or something like that, because we've actually got TGA approved products which are body identical. That means that the molecules are the same as the molecules, identical in structure to the ones that your ovaries have been producing every month in your reproductive years. So they're very well accepted by the body and don't seem to have any particular significant long-term risks in terms of breast cancer or things like that. So it's really, really important to be well informed, do a bit of myth busting. Don't make assumptions and go, oh, no, I don't want the hormonal treatment because that's not natural. Well, I'll tell you what, there's nothing more natural than something that's identical to the structure of the chemical, the hormones your own body's been producing. So I would go and get definitely well informed.
Yeah.
Mm.
There's we've touched on a few things that are like common symptoms, I guess, and disruptions to your life. Sleep is obviously a big one in all of that too. Mental health, God, my brain is swimming now because there's so many different paths we can go down on, go through.
Yeah.
But but when we think of menopause, I guess what has gotten the most press is hot flushes. Now, me personally, I never experienced that. I got a little bit of increased body heat at nighttime sometimes, but I never got the hot flushes. I did get the inflammation in my joints. I got a lot of pain in my joints. And when I couldn't put my feet down on the floor in the morning when I got out of bed, I thought, I need to do something about this. What can I do? So that was my trigger. Are there some other key symptoms that women that might not be typically associated with menopause or perimenopause that we should touch on? Are there a few that might surprise women, I guess?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the sore feet thing is a really common one, actually, and I never knew about that. I've never seen it listed in any list of menopause-related symptoms, but a lot of women complain of foot pain. A lot of women complain of burning mouth or mouth symptoms.
Yes, I had that too.
Yeah. And, palpitations is another one. I mean, what you've got to appreciate is that every cell in your body has pretty much got estrogen receptors. And so when you're getting fluctuations in your reproductive hormones, that's going to have an impact system wide. So yeah, it's very much the case that all the different kinds of organ systems and your brain, your musculoskeletal system, your breasts, your vagina, every part of you is going to be impacted. So, and the other tricky thing, and then another reason not to have blood tests, is that, the amount of estrogen that's circulating in your peripheral blood doesn't tell us about how much of it's actually being effective in your brain either. And your brain is responsible for things like sleep disturbance and hot flushes and brain fog and, cognitive difficulties. So definitely they're all linked together. So
and
these days, I think there's a list of somewhere between 30 and 60 symptoms that could possibly be related to perimenopause and menopause, depending on which source you use.
Yeah. And I guess that's where that open mind, when you have the discussions with your health professional, is so important. And to also be aware of your body. Like I get on my soapbox about a few things these days. Thank God for, declined estrogen and postmenopause. I love the freedom of that. But it's when we're told that just go and lie down, have a rest, have a Bex, like I used to say in the old days, go and have a Bex.
Bex, a cuppa and a good lie down.
Yeah, that's right. And all will just pass and you'll be okay. I think that's kind of a red flag where we go, well, you know what, this doctor might not be the person for me. And that's the other thing, is getting the right advice from the right person. Can you, if this is not too controversial, can you give us some clues as to when to look for someone who might be a better team member for us than not?
I think you've just got to trust your gut on this one, Anita. It is tricky, and no doctor goes in with the intention of, gaslighting their patient, or, all doctors have at least trained and initiated their careers with the desire to help people, and to, they don't want to not help you. I think a lot of the failure to address these issues or prescribe is because of lack of confidence in their own knowledge. And so our first premise is do no harm. So the doctor is going to back away from any discussions or prescribing in an area that they don't feel comfortable with, for fear of actually saying or doing the wrong thing. If you feel like your questions aren't being answered, then definitely go to reputable sources of information in the first instance. Australasian Menopause Society is the best, kind of website to go to in terms of the pooled collated evidence around menopause and perimenopause. And they've got some great information sheets on there for both, health professionals and for patients as well. Of course, our WellFemme website has a wealth of blog posts and information. We've got some recorded webinars there. And if anyone can't get access to a specialist that they want to talk to, well, of course, there's telehealth, and they can book in with us as well. The AMS has a listing of AMS member doctors on their website as well. So if you want to find a doctor in your local area who is a member of the Australasian Menopause Society, they've got listings by state and also for telehealth. That means that they've at least joined as a member of the AMS and have probably attended some of the congresses, the big conferences that they have. Yeah,
because it's we probably need to appreciate the training that our GPs generally have too, because
there's training.
Because generally, women's health is a very small part of the formal training, isn't it, at GP school?
Yeah, I think it's getting better. The RACGP was well represented last week at the Senate hearings here in Canberra as well. And, they are aware that it's been a problem in the past. It is now part of the GP training curriculum. I guess the question is, how much is enough? And I think with this new conversation and emphasis on menopause and the importance of it as a physiological and psychological transitional stage is becoming more and more recognised, and it will be taught better. But at medical school, I don't even know if I heard the M word mentioned. At medical school, it was like, no, we're too busy just trying to deal with emergency department type stuff. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, this is not a judgment. It's just, it is what it is, and it's good to be aware of what it is. And it's also good to
Absolutely.
know that it's changing, which is great through, more
I think it
awareness.
absolutely is. And the GPs are not going to have any choice about that, because women like us are going to go in to see them and be demanding information, and they're going to be forced to expand their knowledge base.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm.
Um, well, should we go down that path,
Mm.
Kelly? Seeing you talked about, government support now and with Senate
Mm.
estimates. Do you want to just share with those listening what you've been working on and what some of the changes are that we could possibly see coming through?
Yeah, so the Senate inquiry, for those who aren't aware, Senator Larissa Waters made the call last year for a Senate inquiry into the issues around perimenopause and menopause, because it was being more and more recognised that there were systematic problems in the way that women were not being serviced and served well by the various different systems, everything from medication supplies to GP training, as we've discussed. So thankfully that call was taken up, and the Senate committee is now hearing all about the issues of perimenopause and menopause from health professionals, from stakeholders, from lived experience patients, anyone who's put in submissions, and there were hundreds, and many of those people, like myself, have been invited to come and speak at the hearings for the Senate inquiry. So those findings will be handed down on September 10th, I think it is.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we're looking at they're looking at everything, as I say, that the AMA and the RACGP and women who've had their own dreadful experiences in various different ways, representatives of nursing groups and rural doctors, and everyone who has an interest in this area is represented. My own personal recommendation was that we have a national menopause action plan, because there are so many stakeholders here.
Yes.
And I think a lot of stuff is being done in an uncoordinated fashion, and therefore not being able to be very targeted with the funding. We're not getting bang for buck, and we're not getting attention on the areas that really need it, because everyone's doing things in a very siloed way. So my recommendation to the committee was that we actually get a national menopause action plan, get all these stakeholders together at the table, and find a systematic way of addressing all of this. So, we need to see public awareness campaigns. Women shouldn't be blindsided when they reach their 50s. They should be knowing about this stuff from their late 30s, knowing what to
Yes.
expect and having these conversations. Yes, and we need to, make sure that we've got secure medication supplies in our own country, rather than being at the bottom of the food chain internationally for drug supplies. All these things need to be looked at.
The various systems, education and health and across the board. Yeah,
Absolutely, all of it.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. And just on that point about that's something else that has been an awakening for me, is that why don't we have these conversations when we're in our 30s and have
Mm.
more of an awareness when we're in our 30s, when we um, can do more to help prevent some of these things. Like, for example, I'm borderline osteoporotic.
Mm.
And I now know that from the age of 30 something, our bones stop making new bone, right? So they stop growing bone to protect, get stronger and healthier. And
Mm.
then with menopause, the menopause transition, of course, that gets accelerated, doesn't it, as estrogen supplies
Yeah,
come
yeah.
down?
So it's not quite as simple as that. Like, it's not that we don't lay down new bone. We absolutely do through our whole life. It's a balance. So,
Right.
we've got two types of cells. One type of cell in the bone wants to break down the bone, and the other cell wants to build the bone. And so whether or not that happens depends on giving yourself adequate nutrition and, calcium in your diet, sunlight exposure for vitamin D, and the forces that are on the bones. And you're leading into my favorite of all topic, which is preventive health and the opportunity
Yes.
that midlife and menopause represents. It's like menopause is ding, 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 time to wake up. It's now or never, time to really start preparing yourself for a healthy older age now. So that's the wake up call that we need with menopause. Bones are just one part of it. So we know, for example, that if you do a lot of strength training and get some impact forces through your bones, you can have bone building benefits that are equal to taking medications. So you don't need to take medications and risk side effects. You just need to be getting plenty of good strength training and impact through your bones, because that stimulates laying down of new bone. And you're absolutely right. We get an accelerated bone loss around menopause, which a lot of people don't know. As you age, you will gradually be losing bone, but it speeds up for a few years after menopause, and you can lose 15 or 20% of your bone density in the 5 years after menopause. Now, if you have a fracture, a catastrophic hip fracture over the age of 50, you've got a 20 or 25% chance of dying in the following 12 months. That is huge. That is the impact that it can have.
Yeah.
Now, there's a few reasons for that, because a lot of it speaks to the whole reason why the person fell and had a fracture in the first place. They're probably quite frail to begin with, or they've got underlying medical conditions. So we don't want to be that person. There's lots and lots of things that we can do. And this is my passion now. Now that we've got WellFemme, we've got the ability to help women with their symptoms. We've got the ability to make them feel better and have better quality of life. Now we want to give them that wake up call and go, right, let's convert that to energy for action. It's just small little things that you can do now that are going to really, really help your quality of life, reduce your risk of chronic disease, keep you fit, strong, functional, independent, and having good quality of life to keep doing the things that give you joy in life into older age.
Oh, amen, sister. I'm
Mm.
1000% behind you on that. And that's why this podcast exists as well. And
Mm.
the work that I do in Sequins and Sand is all about that, is empowering women to understand awareness, what could be ahead of us, not in a fear-inducing way, because we don't want women to fear, but we do want them to go in with eyes wide open and be aware. But that we have
Absolutely.
choice. We have choice. And the whole role of epigenetics as well. I know it's a fairly new science, but the fact that we have choice and we can influence our outcomes by making the right choices from a lifestyle point of view as well is
Oh,
super
yeah, yeah.
significant. Yeah.
Environment is so important. Women are terrified of breast cancer, and absolutely you need to be aware and alert, but not alarmed, because 1 in 7 of us are going to develop breast cancer in their lifetime, including me. I already have it, or had it. It's women are terrified of that, and that's keeping them from using MHT, because they are worried about the risk, increasing their risk of breast cancer, when the reality is that the far, far bigger increase in risk is coming from their lifestyle factors. It's coming from the fact that they're sedentary, that they're drinking too much wine, that they're 20 kilos overweight. That doubles your risk of breast cancer. You should be worried more about that. And that is the whole reason why we developed the Next Phase program, because I couldn't find any good systematic overview that touched on all the different aspects of our bodies and our psychological function and our the mindset evolution that happens at midlife. I couldn't find anything that sort of wrapped that all up together and gave people the support to feel empowered and be able to make those changes. So that's what we do with Next Phase. It's very systematic, it's very supportive.
Yeah, I love that. And I've had a really good look at Next Phase prior to our chat. Maybe let's go there for a few minutes.
Mm.
We've touched on why, but can you tell our listeners a little bit more about Next Phase, and what's involved, as much as and as little as you like? It's over to you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as I say, I see that we've got this window of opportunity. You absolutely don't want to miss this window of opportunity. There's a couple of things in that. If you're somebody who's got bad symptoms who might benefit from hormonal treatment, you absolutely want to get into that sooner rather than later, because the further past menopause you are, the less safe it is to start. And the earlier around menopause you start, the more preventive health benefits it's going to give you. So you definitely want to find out about the opportunity there for whether hormonal treatment is for you. You want to find out about that around the onset of menopause for sure. Then the window of opportunity with respect to prevention of chronic disease, putting aside the hormonal treatment, like I said, you want to help do everything you can now to help slow down or arrest that bone loss, because your big risk factors going as we age, you've got bone loss, muscle loss, so you're going to increase your risk of osteoporosis. 1/3 of us are going to die from cardiovascular diseases, right? Heart attacks and strokes. And these are largely preventable with lifestyle interventions. If we can prevent people from getting diabetes, then we can prevent a lot of that. Dementia, another 1/3 of women will die from dementia. And a lot of those are very largely, the risk factors are largely preventable. Certain types of vigorous exercise, for example, can reduce your risk by, anything up to 40% of dying from dementia. So people need to know this and go, it's not a question of, oh, maybe I should do that. It's like, you absolutely have to do
Need
that.
to.
If you
Yeah.
want to have good quality of life, if you're terrified of dementia, you have to do these things. So, it's dementia, it's osteoporosis, it's heart disease, it's, as I was talking to before, it's about your vagina and your vulva and your sex life and all of those things. It's use it or lose it, I'm afraid. And, if you want to have a good intimate life and you want to be comfortable, then we need to get onto those things early. You have this window of opportunity, and these things will continue to deteriorate and maybe at a faster rate. So we can't hold back time. We can't stop ourselves from aging. We're getting older. But there's, what sort of older person do you want to be? Do you want to be fit, functional, independent, loving life? Or do you want to be that poor, frail person that's sort of using a walker and staying at home because of lack of confidence and fear of falling and having to just get all home services to look after you, not being able to enjoy your family? So, that's what we've got to start thinking about now and planning for it. And that's what Next Phase does. So we systematically, we've got 10 modules, and you've got loads of time. Like when you sign up for the program, you've got at least 6 months to work through these 10 modules over time, which is a combination of sort of videos and online resources. But also we've got a closed community where we have regular little small group meetups so that you can drop in on and sort of get some small group coaching and support. And also even sessions with a personal coach who'll talk to you one-on-one and help you decide what your goals are for the program and where you really need to put your attention. So we've got, we've kind of trying to cover off on all elements, because we know that when it comes to health activities, the evidence is in. Science tells us that people doing these activities together will be much more successful than even doing the same activities by themselves. So we know that having that support, that empowerment, that accountability and encouragement makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. It's wonderful. Congratulations on bringing that together. And what I
Thank
love when
you.
I hear all of what I love when I
The
hear
big
all
job.
of that. Yeah, it's a huge job.
Yeah.
It's huge. You have my heart as an entrepreneur. I get that. You have my heart. I just love that women now have this at their fingertips, that they have choice as well. And in all of this empowerment that we want to give women, we can only go so far. We can say, here it is. This is what we've put together. Now the choice is yours. Now you have to make the move, take the step and dive in and do this. There's, lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So I can't stress that enough as well. Don't just take all of this in and go, oh yeah, one day. Because as we know, Kelly, that window is closing. Again,
It
not to invoke
absolutely
fear,
is.
but it's now. It's go time, right? It's go time.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And nobody can do it but us, the individual person. As you say, having the knowledge isn't enough. I was looking at a documentary about the life of Michael Mosley last night and remembering about he did this one called The Truth About Getting Fit, right? And I often quote it to my patients, like literally 3 minutes a week of, like maximal cardio activity on the bike improves your cardiovascular fitness in 6 weeks. Now, everybody can find 3 minutes a week, right?
Yeah.
1 minute per day per muscle group, like exercising a muscle group for 1 minute per week will keep it strong. And a little bit more than that, and you're building muscle and keeping strong. So you don't need loads of time. You just need to be very targeted and very, consistent. Build it into your routine, do some squats while the kettle's boiling or whatever it is that you're going to do, but build it into your routine and make it happen.
And make it a priority, right? Make your health your priority, because that's the asset that is going to see you living longer, better. And that's what this is
it.
all about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
health
that's
consumers, there's this trend that people have. They come along to the doctor and they will think, right, I brought my problem to the doctor, over to you, fix me, you know.
give me the pill.
It's the externalization that, you know, like, give me the pill, you fix me. Yeah, I'll take a pill for my high cholesterol, high blood pressure. Give me the, you know, Ozempic to lose weight. All of these things, you know, it's not effortless, people. This is your life. This is the capsule that you're stuck with for life, and you need to respect and look after it. And, you know, you can't outsource that. We've all got to do it ourselves.
And ultimately, we die alone, right? Like, that's what I
Mm.
keep thinking in my mind. We
Well,
have to
that's a bit
be
grim.
It is. But at the end of the day, there's just, you know, you can have support around you, but that's how we exit, right? So at the
Mm,
end of the day, I'm responsible for me, you know,
mm.
because there is me at the end of the day. And I think it's great to have the support and the knowledge and all the rest of it, but we have to step up. We have to be
Yeah, yeah.
accountable.
We'll give you the tools. Next phase, we'll give you the information and the support community. But, you know, we can't be there with you, pulling you off the couch, making you put down the chocolate and, you know,
Yep.
making you go out for a walk with the dog.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
Mm.
That's so good. Well, I'm looking at my notes. What else do we need to cover off here? I think we've
Um,
covered so much. The
we've covered
symptoms,
loads of the symptoms.
we've talked
We've
about the
mentioned
symptoms.
a little bit about, you know, the import of early menopause and the impact of that. The self-compassion we haven't really kind of
No.
done a lot of. Mm,
Yeah, let's go there because, you know, Erica, my partner in crime here, hello,
mm,
Erica, because I know you'll be watching this and editing it all. But
mm,
Erica is self-kind. You know,
mm,
that's her world. And I think, well, it's another, you know, soapbox time potentially, but
mm,
we've lived in such a testosterone fueled environment, you know, and I think with that we have lost our sense of kindness and compassion for each other.
mhm,
And I think that that's changing, but
mm,
we need
mm,
to realize as women that, you know, if we need a break, if we're not coping, if something doesn't feel right, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign to listen and to give yourself some compassion and show yourself some kindness and sit with it and maybe reflect on it, but regroup and then go again. What do you have some thoughts on that, Kelly?
Women are very hard on ourselves. We judge ourselves in ways that we would never judge others. You know, our self-talk can be so negative, and we can be really, really judgy. We hold ourselves to be responsible and accountable for so much and so many other people, and we don't you know, we feel uncomfortable, like, by culture, we feel uncomfortable actually um, giving to ourselves. It's considered to be selfish in some way. So it's really hard to break that programming. My three key words is community, communication, and compassion, because, you know, you need to have that. You need to talk. You need to you need to have a community. You need to communicate with that community. Women together, swapping experiences, sharing experiences, talking to one another, that brings validation, normalization, perspective. You know, it leads you to have realistic expectations of what this next phase of life might bring, and to know I'm not the only one. It's normal. You know, I mean, it's still, you still might have awful symptoms, but then you might also go, okay, well, at least I'm not in this alone, and I know that there are avenues for help. But self-compassion is so important, and recognizing that your reality is your reality. You know, if you're hearing other women in chat rooms or whatever talking about their experiences and that's not yours, it doesn't invalidate your experience. So you do need to recognize that this is your journey and you get to do it your way. And just because you're having minor symptoms, if they're terrible for you, don't let someone else, you know, tell you, "Oh, that's nothing, you know, I've got this other stuff going on."
Just get on with
Well,
it. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. You know, it's like, well, this is actually pretty big for you or very impactful for you. be very kind to yourself. And it's absolutely core in next phase. We talk about a lot. Thea O'Connor does the mindset coaching for us in next phase. She's so brilliant. What she brings to it, I think, is the most important stuff of all. And it's all about recognizing the basis for our relationship with our bodies or food or aging or whatever, helping us make that psychological adjustment. But yeah, absolutely, I've kind of lost my train with what I was saying.
Self-compassion.
I know,
It's
self-compassion.
important.
Yes,
It's underrated,
exactly.
really. It's underrated. It's not.
It absolutely is. So she brings a lot to the table with that those themes of self-compassion and just being kind to yourself, and if you've set yourself a goal and then you in some way you feel like, oh, I've let myself down today on that, the risk is that you throw it all out the window and eat the whole packet of Tim Tams, or just don't do anything because you don't feel like going to the gym. And what we need to recognize is that, okay, this is the best I can do today. I'm just going to, go out for a walk with the dog rather than go to the gym. Or, hey, I had a Tim Tam, big deal, I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah. And just on this, I so appreciate this because often I think mental health and discussions around mental health is really important, and thankfully they're getting more airtime now too. Also think that working with a lot of women now, my medium was swimwear, which sounds a bit odd, but swimwear is a medium for women to prove to themselves that they can when they aren't feeling so confident about their bodies, So the whole body image thing comes through loud and clear when I was trying to fit them in swimwear, for example, which you'd think would be a fairly simple act, right? Getting into a swimsuit. But for so many women, it bubbles up a lot of concern and trauma and just not loving their bodies. And in midlife, midsection, it grows and gets bigger and our body shapes change. So we need to appreciate that too. But what I learned through doing that work for 15 years is that women just want the swimsuit. They want the solution. But what they really need, and often don't appreciate when they first set out on that journey, is that they need that mindset support. And when you've got the mindset support as well, that's what elevates you. That gives you the momentum. That gives you the means to then move
Yeah,
forward.
absolutely. I mean, you think about it. You think of, what you looked like when you felt like you looked your best. Okay. Maybe it was in your 20s or 30s. And then you think of the best version of an 80-year-old woman that you could imagine in a swimsuit looking in a mirror. Now, that just doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen, like, no one flicks a switch at age 60 and you go from being that to that. It's a progression, but it's one that we're uncomfortable with, the spreading middle, the saggier boobs, the tuck shop arms, whatever it is. That gradually happens. Aging happens, so that it really is a big mindset adjustment to look at your body, revere it for what it's done, for how it's carried you through life and what it can do to support you, and respect it, love it, nourish it, exercise it, move it, enjoy it.
Get to know it, like
Oh,
just get to
yes.
know your body, and let that be your guide. Absolutely. I think that is a perfect way to end this conversation, which has been so enlightening. Thank you, Kelly. And I know that we could talk for days on all of this stuff. There's so many aspects to midlife and menopause, the big M. But are there any parting thoughts what are the takeaways? Like, if we were to choose 4 or 5 takeaways for women out of this, what do you want them to know about, getting the right medical advice in this stage of life, and then moving forward, how they should equip themselves for this next stage of life?
Absolutely. Yeah, the key summary, I think, is equip yourself with information from reputable sources, trusted sources, and go to have that conversation with your health professional, empowered and informed, but with an open mind. If you're somebody who's gone through a particularly early menopause, do not put that conversation off. There may be some absolutely critical information you need with respect to getting estrogen support up to the normal age of menopause to help prevent, premature heart disease and osteoporosis. So do not put that off. Also, the window of opportunity thing is super important. And as I said, if you're somebody who's putting up with debilitating symptoms around menopause, don't put off going and getting good advice about the possibility of hormone therapy sooner rather than later, because like I say, if the later you leave it, the less safe it might be to start, and you might miss out on some really good protective health benefits that go along with good symptom management. And finally, that window of opportunity with respect to prevention of chronic disease and staying functional and well and great into older age, just start now with small little targeted interventions, which we can tell you all about in next phase, and do them consistently. And that will be amplified over the coming decades to give you a rock in older age. So, don't miss that window.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, don't miss that window. Now, girls, it's go time. Let's go. Thank you so much, Kelly. Girls, thanks for tuning in. All of the ways that you can connect with Dr. Teagle through WellFemme and through Next Phase will be in the show notes as well. But actually, if some girls like to take action before they read, where can they find you? So the WellFemme and with Next Phase.
Yeah. So the WellFemme website is a great port of call because we've got some really cool stuff on there. So right on front of the homepage, they can do a free menopausal health assessment quiz, which sort of helps them to identify, where their key areas might be that need attention. And, it gives them some immediate suggestions of perhaps sources of information and what they can do about it. We've even got things like free webinars that they can look at, like the Menopause Bootcamp webinar, and we've got a page that lists all previous webinars we've done, including stuff about MHT and sex and libido and supplements and diet and all that kind of stuff. So we've got a good range of stuff there that they can access right away.
Yeah, and that's at WellFemme.
WELL F for Fred EMME.com.au.
Great. And Next Phase is Next Phase.
Yep, nextphase.com. Yep. No AU on the end of Next Phase. Okay. Yep, just Next Phase. Yeah, and it's I'd love to see you guys in there. It just gives me such a buzz to meet up with women in the community and just be talking around what their challenges are and how we can help support each other.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks so much, Kelly. Thanks so much for listening, ladies. It's go time. Go get them. Look after you, future you. It's in your hands. Thanks so much. See you.
Thank you for joining us for Midlife Unfiltered. If you loved this episode, you're going to love what's coming next. Be sure you're subscribed on your platform of choice so you don't miss a thing.
We'd also be delighted, and for sure do a little happy dance, if you took the time to leave us a rating and review. Those not only absolutely make our day, but more importantly, it helps other women who may be wanting something more from their midlife to know about us and to listen in as well. You can connect with us on socials too. You'll find links to connect on LinkedIn, Instagram, and email in the show notes.